Despite Americans choosing crossovers as their ideal vehicle as a daily driver, there is a deep demand and desire for small cars once again in the US market. In fact, that is one huge void that many manufacturers have created for themselves, with Ford, Chevrolet, and other manufacturers taking a step back and focusing primarily on those crossovers. Well, with Mazda, they're not only one of the last manufacturers to have a small compact sedan, they also have a small compact hatchback with the Mazda 3. And in today's video, we're going to check out what the Preferred trim has to offer. This is a trim that comes in under $30,000, but you are receiving a long list of features. And in today's video, we're going to check out what this model has to offer. We're going to take a good long look at the exterior, the interior, take it out for a test drive, and see why, if you are in the market for a hot hatch right now, you want a car that will put a smile on your face, but also have a car that is efficient at the end of the day, then maybe taking a look at the Mazda 3 Preferred might be a great decision. Now, before we get in this video, I want to give a huge shout and thank you to Ira Mazda of Westwood in Westwood, Massachusetts, for letting me come down here to check out the Mazda 3. Their link will be in the description below, so you can check out their extensive Mazda inventory. So as always, let's begin with pricing. For 2025, with the Mazda 3 Hatchback Preferred, you're looking at a starting cost of just under $28,000. Now, for a lot of manufacturers, $28,000 is getting you closer to the top trim for that particular vehicle, but not for Mazda. We have many more trims to go here, and you can go with a Turbo 4, you can go with all-wheel drive, you can receive a lot of creature comforts and amenities out of this hatchback that we really, quite frankly, don't see anymore in this market, because a lot of manufacturers that make cars like this are going to give you more of that halo car, that sports car with a sports tuned suspension, great performance, whereas Mazda, they decided to move on from those days. But with this car though, I think it has a classic design and also a timeless design here, because what Mazda's been doing over the past, I'd say 10 years, maybe a bit longer than that now, they have cars that still look modern years later. It also helps that the Mazda 3 is almost identical in its design to that CX-30. But let's take a deeper dive into this and get acclimated with the Preferred. So up front, you are going to receive full LED headlights. Fantastic for a car in this market, but better yet though, and I love to see this, the front grille is in a gloss black trim. So no plastic cladding there, no plastic trim, nothing that makes it look cheap or tacky. But also outlining that grille is black chrome, which looks fantastic on this model. And Mazda does a fantastic job of giving you a premium look and design to their vehicles. Better yet though, and you see this more with the Mazda 3, more so than other vehicles in the lineup such as the CX-50, CX-70, or CX-90, is that the body lines are very smooth and streamlined. This car looks very minimalist from the outside, which I think looks pretty good. That's why it does look so modern and timeless there with that design. Then as you make your way over the side profile with the Preferred, you are going to receive 18-inch alloy wheels here, which look really nice on this model, but better yet, the 18s are not going to create too much road noise or create too much harshness when you are going over the bumps and imperfections. In fact, I think the 18s are a great fit for a car of this size, and obviously with it being a compact hatchback that is not sports tuned, you should have no issues on your weekday commutes. So you are going to have body color match side mirror caps with turn signal indicators. Some vehicles don't offer that at $28,000, and better yet, you are going to receive blind spot detection for added safety. Then as you make your way around to the back for the Mazda 3, you are going to have LED taillights. So LED light setup throughout for this model, that is great, because a lot of manufacturers, especially in the compact car market, give you incandescent tail lamps such as Subaru with that Impreza. Now really though, for the final third though, it's the two-tone design. You have a gloss black spoiler and then also a gloss black rear diffuser, teasing us with a Mazda 3 Speed that we will never receive from the brand. Mazda has moved on. They're focusing on luxury now, and you see that with this design. Even for a car under $30,000, you can tell that Mazda is priding themselves on being more of an entry-level luxury brand rather than being a mainstream competitor in this segment. Then to round out the final third of this car, you are going to have dual exhaust outlets being visible, giving you that sportier and dynamic appearance to this hatchback. Powering the Mazda 3 we have today is a 2.5-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine, producing 191 horsepower and 186 pound-feet of torque, and best of all, it is paired with a 6-speed automatic transmission. That is right, Unlike Toyota, Honda, and Subaru, no CVT. So you can really enjoy your driving experience and your weekday commutes with this engine. Now, there are a few things I want to point out here about the Mazda 3. One being you can go with the Turbo 4, which would be the more enthusiastic choice. Now, that does come at a cost, but you're going to have a lot more power to work with there. But with the Preferred, you also don't get all-wheel drive, and that is one selling point for this hatchback. Not a lot of hatchbacks in this segment come with all-wheel drive, so you're going to have to stick with front-wheel drive if you're going to go with the Preferred. But probably more importantly here is going to be that fuel economy. You're looking at right around 27 miles per gallon in the city and 35 miles per gallon on the highway for a combined average of 30 miles per gallon, which is pretty good for a car that isn't hybrid. So if you're looking for an affordable daily driver that's also economical, the Preferred would be a great choice. But what about that interior? Well, that's where the value really comes into play for this car. Hopping inside the Mazda 3 Hatchback Preferred, you are greeted by a very classy interior, one of the best in this segment. Now, I know a lot of you are weighing in the comment section saying, all right, I'm going to let Mike slip up on this. He's not right. The Honda Civic is not the best compact car in this market. No, I'm not saying that. I am not saying that at all. In fact, I think the Mazda 3 is going to end up being the bridesmaid and not the bride in this segment, because there's a lot that I do like about this car that maybe it does fall a bit behind even Kia and Hyundai for the technology, but interior layout and interior quality, I would disagree with that. I think this is one of the best in its market. And it starts off with the dashboard and door panels. You have sawtooth materials on the dashboard, door panels, and center console, which really gives you this heightened experience for a car at $27,000 or $28,000 to start. Because you would look at this and say, wow, this is like a $35,000 interior, when in actuality, it is not. Now, also, this is helped out by the seats and the steering wheel. But let's start off with these seats. You have heated leatherette seats for both the driver and passenger. The driver's side is power adjustable and also has 2-position memory for added convenience, whereas the passenger will have to manually find the ideal seating position. You expect this at 28 grand or under $30,000. Now, in true Mazda fashion, the bolstering and support is pretty aggressive here, so you are going to have a sportier experience being behind the wheel of the Mazda 3, although the cushioning is also pretty good as well. So it feels very premium being behind the wheel of this model, and in my opinion, this is the hatchback that the Germans should be making, but they're not going to, since you no longer get the Golf here. It's only the GTI and Golf R. So if we had a car under $30,000 from Volkswagen, the Mazda 3 would probably be very close to what that Golf would be like here in the US. Now, in front of you will be a leather-wrapped steering wheel, which feels really nice in the hands, but unfortunately, no paddle shifters, which kind of makes sense since we don't have the Turbo 4 under the hood for the Preferred, but I would love to see that, though, to road to the 6-speed automatic myself. Now, no aggressive 10-2 or firm 9-3 grips, but still, though, for a daily driver for a small compact car, it still feels quite nice being behind the wheel of this hatchback. In front of you will be a small information display in between your analog gauges, very similar to every other Mazda in the lineup, where it's basic. It's very basic, in fact. So unlike what you find from Honda, even Subaru now, and then also Kia and Hyundai, this is going to be very straightforward, where you are going to notice your average fuel economy statistics, your remaining fuel range, and then your safety systems. But that's it. That's basically it. Now, some of you might actually prefer that, though, out of a car in this market, because technology tends to override your driving experience, whereas Mazda makes sure that you're focusing on the road rather than the screens. And speaking of screens, you are going to have an 8.8-inch infotainment system here with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatibility. By going with the Preferred, you're not going to have the Bose audio system, which, you know, honestly, for cars in the Mazda lineup, the standard audio systems actually have a good amount of bass to them, so you should have some fun listening to your favorite music. Now, with this screen, you are going to have a rotary dial and quick access buttons to get your different menus efficiently. So it's still going to have no touchscreen functionality for Mazda's software, and you expect that from the brand. They don't want you reaching for that infotainment system since it isn't in arm's reach. However, the resolution and quality is pretty good, and the responsiveness is fantastic. There is no lagging with this head unit. Now, unlike other vehicles in this market, which are now starting to utilize Google built-in software, you're not going to have that layout. In fact, the way the menus are laid out, it kind of reminds me of a PlayStation screen, which is kind of cool here. Now, obviously, with the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, you're going to still have that same layout there. So at least you're going to have some smartphone connectivity. Now, for preferred trims and other models in the Mazda lineup, you get wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto along with a wireless phone charging pad. You don't receive that here with the Mazda 3, showcasing kind of how old the Mazda 3 is in the lineup, because I'm starting to notice that there's some certain aspects where you can tell that an update is going to be necessary in the future. Now, in placing the Mazda 3 in reverse, you're only going to have a rear backup camera, but no trajectory. So that is a bit of a surprise, but you are going to have a 180-degree view for better visibility when you are backing out of tight spots or on a street. Continuing on towards the center console, beneath the head unit, you are going to find your buttons and dials for your dual zone climate control, AC, front and rear defrosters, fan speed, fan direction, and your 3-level heated seats, which is really great to see here. A lot of manufacturers are moving away from this, so to have an analog and tactile layout in 2025 might be exactly what the doctor ordered. Beneath that, you are going to find a tray for a smartphone or wallet and other tech gadgets as well, so you are going to have some cubbies here that will at least give you some practicality up front. You're going to find 2 cup holders. Then for the center console itself, you're going to have that gloss black trim flanking your gear selector here, typical for Mazda. I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, it's going to be so difficult to keep this clean and maintain it, but we see a lot of this right now under $30,000. Next to your gear selector will be the drive mode selector, basically for your sport and then your normal mode. Then, of course, you're going to find your electronic parking brake and auto vehicle hold, that rotary dial and quick access buttons, and then on the right side will be the dial for your volume and tuning for the radio. For the center storage compartment, there is enough room for smaller items, maybe a couple smartphones, wallets, or other tech gadgets, and you will find 2 USB-C inputs. Then to round out the front seating area, and this is why you might want to go with the Preferred, above will be a power moonroof, which brings in a lot of natural light to the interior. Now, moving on for passengers in the back, obviously, with this being a compact hatchback, you're not going to receive a lot of interior space. In fact, you're going to have right around 35 inches of legroom, which is on par with other small compact cars in this market, but this is hardly going to be practical compared to, say, a crossover. In fact, this is very similar to a Mazda CX-30, which is to be expected since it is built on the exact same platform. Now, this seat isn't adjusted all the way back, thankfully, because I would lose circulation in my legs. So don't have taller passengers sit in the back if there's a tall passenger up front, because it will not be a good time for them. Now, they will be hitting their head on the headliner with that lower roof line, but again, this is probably for a younger family. So if you have smaller kids in the back, everyone should be comfortable. Also, the leatherette seating material, it does feel quite nice. There's a lot of cushioning back here, so passengers should be nice and comfortable on those longer road trips or commutes. Now, in regards to shoulder room, it is a bit tight back here, and that's mostly due to the fact that you are going to have a center hump here, which is very aggressive, taking away from that legroom. So you'll be fighting for that elbow room if you try squeezing in a third person in the center, which I would not recommend. Now, back here, you are not going to receive 2 USB-C inputs or 2 center-mounted air vents. Not too much of a surprise, though, for a vehicle under $30,000. We rarely see that in this market, but hopefully at some point, maybe for a new generation or an update, we get that for the Preferred. However, with this trim, you do receive a center armrest with 2 cup holders. Making our way around to the back one more time to take a look at the rear cargo area. Obviously, with the hatchback, you're not going to receive a power liftgate. You have to go with the CX-30 for that one. But inside, behind the second row seat, you're looking at right around 20 cubic feet of room, which falls right in line with other hatchbacks in this market, but does fall a bit short compared to a Civic hatchback. 20 cubic feet of room is more than enough for what I'm carrying today, so that's 3 bags of camera gear, a gimbal box, and a tripod, and there's still more room to stack on other items as well. Maybe if I was going grocery shopping afterwards, I could do so for sure. Now, there are the indentations for the rear cargo cover here, which will keep all your valuable items out of sight. So if you are like me and you have camera gear or anything else of value, you can leave them back here and have that peace of mind knowing that nobody will be able to peek in and steal what you have. Beneath the floor mat, you are going to find a spare tire. So if you encounter a flat on those road trips or travels, you can fix that and be back on the road. Then finally, with the second row seats folded, you're looking at right on 47 cubic feet of room, once again falling in line with other hatchbacks and other small crossovers in this market. So it's more than conducive if you do live in the city. Maybe you're by yourself, you don't have a family quite yet. This is going to be a great daily driver if you don't want a crossover and you don't want the ground clearance that you have with the CX-30. So I think the Mazda 3 is still a competitive car in this market, despite the fact that we haven't seen a major refresh in a few years. The Mazda 3 is one of those cars where you look at it and you say, it's the bridesmaid and will never be the bride. It's a good enough car to be a great choice in this market, but the Honda Civic exists, unfortunately, for Mazda, because what Honda's doing with that platform and chassis, it might just be unrivaled. But with the Mazda 3, though, what you have is a car that is practical, it's comfortable, and more importantly, engaging to drive, even with this naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine. Now, 191 horsepower, 186 pound-feet of torque doesn't seem like a lot to write home with, but because you have a 6-speed automatic transmission and no CVT, that makes a world of a difference. But better yet, even though this car doesn't have a sports-tuned suspension, the steering and handling is stiff and provides a lot of engagement here. And as you can tell, as we're entering the highway, it does feel quite planted and very fun. The suspension is quite rigid, and that is one thing that Mazda has been doing very well with their vehicles, whether it's the Mazda 3 or CX-30, CX-5, or CX-70, where these vehicles feel very well refined. They feel upscale and premium, but not at the upscale and premium cost. I mean, at $28,000 to start, I mean, this car does feel somewhat like a $35,000 car with the interior materials that Mazda's using, with the softest materials on the dashboard and door panels, and also these seats. These seats make a world of a difference if you're buying a daily driver right now. Another thing that stands out to me with the Mazda 3 is the interior insulation. Now, obviously, we have the 18-inch wheels here that helps out with the ride quality and the road noise, where you don't hear a lot of it, but for a car under $30,000, you don't typically experience that in this market, so that is quite refreshing out of a compact hatchback such as this. Now, while Mazda probably won't continue on the Mazda 3 nameplate in a few years, I think it would be a mistake, because this is exactly what most buyers would be looking for. You drop in a hybrid powertrain and boom, now you have a car that can go head-to-head with Honda and Toyota. Even for a car like this with a naturally aspirated 4-cylinder, it is quite fun, and also it is peppy. For me though, if I don't look at the badge on the steering wheel and I don't really look at this car from the outside, I'm thinking I'm driving probably an Audi A3 hatchback or a Volkswagen Golf, where you're going to have a car that feels more German in its characteristics and nature. And that's what I feel like I have here with the Mazda 3. This is a hatchback that the Germans should be making and never will under $30,000. While the suspension is a bit more firm and stiff, you still glide over the bumps and imperfections, and it still feels like an end of a luxury car in the lineup. Better yet though, with this naturally aspirated 4-cylinder, it doesn't drone too much either. So it's a great choice for someone looking for a quiet and somewhat upscale car at this segment. Ultimately though, what it's going to boil down to for the Mazda 3 is what does it offer that is unique to this segment, and why you should choose this over a Toyota Corolla or even a Subaru Impreza. Now, compared to Impreza, you can go with all-wheel drive. You also get a Turbo 4, which you're not going to find in most rivals. Most rivals in this segment are all naturally aspirated with a CVT. So to have a 6-speed automatic, that alone puts us in a category and league of its own. But it's also everything else that surrounds the driving experience. As I've already talked about, where this car does feel sporty and engaging, it's also the interior quality. It's the fact that this car feels more expensive than the price tag would suggest. I mean, at $28,000, you have a car that does feel premium, that does feel upscale. And that is something that a lot of manufacturers and a lot of rivals are not going to offer. And on top of all of this, what you have with the Mazda 3 is a car that is low-key economical. You don't really throw this in the mix with the Toyota Corolla or Honda Civic, and yet I think it deserves to be up there with 27 miles per gallon in the city and 35 miles per gallon on the highway. It's ultimately a car that gives you a lot to work with without having to spend an arm and a leg, and that right there is why the Mazda 3 is worth considering in this market. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this quick review for the 2025 Mazda 3 hatchback. If you did, please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys next time.